The history of computers occupies a very small part of the timeline of humanity. In fact, computers have been around for less than 1% of our entire human history. Consider this: just 400 years ago, William Oughtred invented the slide rule. This device made solving calculations much faster than by hand. Since that early invention, computers have brought us to a world that we would never have imagined. It wasn't until the 1800s that a man by the name of Charles Babbage would lay down the general principles of the modern computer. His device, called the analytical engine, was able to store and recall information. It operated very similarly to a modern computer, in that it had a processor to make the calculations, a store to store information, and punch cards that provided input. It was a system of gears and shafts that could make calculations. Although his computing machine was never finished, it laid the groundwork for modern computing. Man's first real need for a computer became apparent during the census count of 1890. The boom of population stirred a need for a device that could compute the census totals before the next census count took place. An electronic punch card device was developed by Herman Hollerith. This machine used punch cards to input tabulation data, and this information was then output onto a screen made of clock-style dials. This machine was a huge success, as it allowed the 1890 census count to be calculated in a single year compared to the 10 years by hand. The demand for computing grew, and during World War II, there was great demand for firing tables that allowed gunners to hit their targets. The ENIAC was created as the first general-purpose electronic computer. It could be reprogrammed to solve different types of problems. ENIAC took up 680 square feet of space and used 17,000 vacuum tubes, along with other electronic components, to perform 5,000 simple math functions per second. The ENIAC was created as the first general-purpose electronic computer. Vacuum tubes like this one that were used to operate ENIAC worked much like light bulbs and would go out frequently, making the use of the machine difficult. Despite the problems of the vacuum tube, ENIAC was a huge success. There was little doubt that the future would involve the use of computers to help with large computing tasks. Computers over the next years would become largely business machines. Eckert and Mauchly, the creators of the ENIAC, created a company called UNIVAC. UNIVAC computers were built for business computing and were still in use into the early 1980s. Early units could store 2,000 to 10,000 words in their core memory system. These computers started out as vacuum tube machines, much like ENIAC, but ended up changing with the times because of an invention called the transistor. The transistor replaced vacuum tubes and made computers smaller and more powerful. Many people feel that the transistor is the greatest invention of the 20th century. The transistor is the key component of almost all electronic products today. The invention of the transistor also led to the invention of the integrated circuit. The integrated circuit chip holds many different types of semiconductor devices all in one piece of semiconductor material. Millions of transistors and other electronic components are now nestled in between layers of silicon. It is these chips that have led to the birth of the modern computer that we know and love. Although the integrated circuit was making computers smaller and faster, they were still hard to use. Doug Engelbart was taking the microchip and devising ways to make it easy to use. In 1968, he displayed a working computer that was operated remotely via microwave technology. It was the first computer to incorporate a mouse and use a markup language which would be similar to what we use today when we surf the web. This was a major design breakthrough in how computers would be used in the future, and it has been made more popular by Apple and Microsoft. Up until the 1980s, just 30 years ago, the computer was still mostly used for government and large business applications. These computers were still large, bulky, and too costly for individual use. In 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak formed the Apple Computer Corporation. The first computer that they built was the Apple I computer kit. As the name implies, it was a kit. This means that all of the parts and pieces came for you to assemble. As demand for the Apple I computers grew, they began to mass market the Apple II computers and created a strong market in the business sector with the invention of the computer spreadsheet program. By 1984, the Apple Computer Company launched the Macintosh computers, which featured a mouse and windows similar to Doug Engelbart's earlier inventions. Along the way to creating the Macintosh computer, Apple needed some help. They enlisted the help of Bill Gates and his software company Microsoft to help develop some of the operating system for the Macintosh. Upon seeing this groundbreaking future of computers, Bill Gates created the Windows software to compete directly with the Macintosh software. The Windows operating system was sold to many different PC manufacturers, while Apple computers kept their software and operating system to just their system. PCs that use the Windows operating system and Apple computers comprise most of the computer market today. However, Linux has become a popular choice due to its low cost and customizability. We are just getting started, however, and are still in the dark ages of computing. As you can tell, computers have only been around for a very short time in man's history. The breakthroughs already have us gasping for air. The future will contain marvels beyond our imagination, as transistors become just a few atoms wide, and screens become as thin as paper. No matter who you are, computers have more than likely already played a role in your own history. Who knows what tomorrow might bring?